Pre-warning, I might be including images which are very disturbing and graphic. I might have to just censor them because of YouTube rules and guidelines, but just a heads up, just in case. Hey, it's Mel, hope you're doing well, and if you're new to the channel, welcome. Today we're going to be looking at the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings. This case occurred in Massachusetts. This happened 11 years ago, and it's also inspired films such as Patriots Day 2016 starring Mark Wahlberg, and Stronger 2017 starring Jake Gyllenhaal. There's a lot to cover, so let's get into it. Today is the anniversary of the Boston Marathon bombings. I was 12 years old when this happened, and I remember seeing it all over the news, especially the youngest victim, which we'll talk about later. On the 15th of April 2013 at 2:49 PM at the Boston Marathon, a pair of bombs detonated near the finish line. More than 26,000 runners participated in the race. It was a huge event. This was a terrorist attack that killed 3 people and 281 were injured. About 5 hours into the race, the first bomb goes off. It explodes less than half a block from the finish line on the north side of Boylston Street. 12 seconds later, the second bomb explodes 600 feet away from the first one. The police and first responders jumped into action immediately. A tent that was used to treat runners was turned into an emergency medical facility. The damage that these 2 bombs caused was devastating. That day, the streets turned red, quite literally. There was blood all over the place. People were screaming out in pain. People were, in shock. People had lost limbs. There was actually limbs just chilling on the bloody ground. It was a massacre. While doing research for this case, I came across some gut-wrenching photos which no one should see, to be quite honest with you. Images of people who had lost limbs, like victims. Well, we shouldn't be calling them victims, we should be calling them survivors actually. There's so many pictures of these people on the ground, lost limbs, There is one famous picture of survivor Jeff Barnum, I think that's how you say his name. In this image, he is being taken to hospital in a wheelchair, and he's clearly in shock, he's bleeding, his feet are gone, okay? From the knee to the ankle, all you can see is bone, and from his knee, you can see his skin hanging on by a thread. I'm seeing the image in my head right now, and it's making me ill. The fact that people went through this is insane. People lost limbs. After that day, their lives were changed forever. After the explosion, people were taken to local hospitals, and let me tell you, the hospital staff, they were severely overwhelmed, much like the police. There was so much going on, there was so much yelling. People had become deaf for a few seconds. From the explosions, their ears had popped. 3 people died as a result of the bombings. They succumbed to their injuries. Lindsay Liu, age 23, Crystal Campbell, 29, and Martin Richard, age 8. He was the youngest victim, and I remember seeing his face on the news. Lindsay was a graduate student from China studying statistics. She was a gifted musician and public speaker. She decided to watch the marathon on a study break. This next part is very graphic. The second bomb sliced her leg open from hip to toe and she bled to death. Crystal from Arlington was a hard worker. She had a beautiful, bubbly personality. She would always want to help people, and she often went to go and see the marathon runners. She was a 2001 graduate from Medford High School. She succumbed to her injuries and died. Martin from Dorchester loved his Boston Red Sox. He was just 8 years old and he had high hopes for his future. He was a great athlete and a good student. He'd always help others with their homework. He was a quiet, compassionate kid. His mum and sister both recovered from serious injuries. There is actually a 4th victim. He didn't die from the initial bombing, he was actually murdered. 27-year-old Sean Collier, I hope I'm saying his name right, if not I apologise. He was a police officer with a beautiful smile, and he loved his job. He always went out of his way to help others. He was shot and killed on the 18th of April, just days after the bombing. He was in his car in Cambridge patrolling the area when he was ambushed and killed by the marathon bombers. There was 2 bombers, brothers Tamerlan and Dzoka. Not even going to try and pronounce their second names. I'll just put their full names up on the screen. The bombs were homemade, actually from pressure cookers. After the bombings, an intense investigation happened. FBI released images and video of the brothers, who were later identified by the public. After the murder of Sean Collier and an armed carjacking, the brothers were on the run for a day. Police pursued the stolen vehicle to the Boston suburb of Watertown. An intense firefight ensued between the police and the bombers. Improvised explosive devices were thrown at the police. One police officer was shot and wounded. 26-year-old Tamerlan was seriously wounded by explosives and multiple gunshots. He was further injured when his younger brother hit him with a car as he fled the scene. Tamerlan was taken to the hospital and was pronounced dead in the early morning hours of the 19th of April. Tamerlan's brother, Dezoka, was still on the run. The police were doing a huge house-to-house hunt, searching people's houses, making sure they were safe. Everyone was ordered to stay in their house. That same day, at 6 p.m, a stay-at-home order was lifted when a Watertown resident went to his backyard to check on his boat that was parked there. He noticed that its protective trap had come loose, and while he was adjusting it, he saw Dezoka hiding in the boat. He then immediately called the police. They soon arrived on scene. He was taken into custody. This was all over the news, and people were clapping, people were celebrating that this was finally all over. Obviously, people had a lot of healing to do physically and mentally and also emotionally. Through this traumatic event, everyone in Boston really came together as a community. After a 2-week trial on the 8th of April 2015, Dezoka was found guilty. On the 15th of May, he was given a death sentence. That still to this day is up in the air. Dezoka, now aged 30, continues to appeal his sentence. As for the survivors of the bombings, they've continued to live their life as best as they can. I just wish the best for everyone that was involved. Of course, there are other people who suffered from the bombings, such as Leo Wolfenden. He was lifted from his stroller by a first responder while his dad lay on the ground with a severed leg. Leo suffered a skull fracture. Erica Brannock was the last survivor to leave the hospital. She went to the marathon from her home in suburb Maryland to cheer her mum on. Erica was close to the finish line. When the bomb went off, she was knocked to the pavement and lost her right leg. Celeste Corcoran and her daughter Sydney recovered in the same hospital room. Doctors managed to save Sydney's leg, but Celeste lost both of hers. Couple Patrick and Jessica Downs lost both of their left legs. Jessica was a nurse and she focused on saving her husband when the bomb went off. All of these people are so strong. After this incident, the phrase Boston Strong was created. 17 people lost limbs. One of the victims, a young woman who had her leg amputated, she said in an interview that even though she suffered, she couldn't spend the rest of her life being angry. She had to let go, and that's exactly what she did. What I find most infuriating above all else is the fact that the two bombers stuck around at the marathon to see their bombs explode. They wanted to see the destruction that they caused. I need to calm down because I'm getting stressed. I've said it before in numerous videos and I'll say it again. I do not understand war. I don't understand why we can't just love each other, be nice to each other and share land. Why does there have to be a bloody war all the time? I don't know. The bombings happened 11 years ago now and people are still recovering from it. That's all for today. That was the case of the 2013 Boston Marathon bombings. Leave a comment below what you think about this case. By the way, I will be continuing the movie Mayhem series since you guys really seem to like it. And as always, thanks for watching. Take care. Bye.